The day a narcissist really loses is not the day you expose them. It is not the day they say sorry. It is not even the day they walk away. It is the day they understand they can no longer control what happens inside your mind. That is the real breaking point. Most people spend years trying to defeat a narcissist, not seeing that the victory already started in quiet ways. And today, you may recognize that you have already stepped out of the prison they built around your thoughts. Think about this for a second. Have you ever noticed yourself reacting differently to someone who once had total emotional power over you? Maybe their insults do not hit as hard now. Maybe their silence no longer fills you with fear. Maybe for the first time in years, you can sleep without your body waiting for the next emotional storm. If even one of those feels true, then stay with this all the way through, because the last shift is the one many people miss, and it may be the clearest proof that you have already won. The first sign is quiet. So quiet that many people almost miss it. It arrives when you realize you no longer need them to admit what they did. You no longer need the apology. You no longer need them to understand your pain or see your side of the story. Slowly, emotional indifference starts replacing that desperate hunger for justice. Before, their words could stay in your head for days. You replayed every conversation. You questioned your memory. You hunted for proof that you were not the problem. Every insult, every cold silence, every twist of the truth felt like a puzzle you had to solve. But now, something has changed. Their opinion no longer decides your worth. Their approval no longer controls your mood. And that change, quiet as it is powerful. It usually happens slowly. So slowly that one day you look back and realize the emotional grip is gone. You stop checking your phone every few minutes hoping they text. You stop imagining that perfect conversation where they finally understand what they did. You stop wasting your breath trying to prove their behavior to people who have chosen not to see it. Instead, your attention starts returning to your own life, your plans, your goals, your peace. The emotional space they once occupied begins to shrink, and that is a massive loss for them because their power always depended on your emotional investment. It did not matter if you loved them, feared them, or even hated them. As long as they lived at the center of your thoughts, they still had access to you. But once indifference takes their place, that access starts closing. You have not forgotten what happened. You have not excused it. You have simply reached a place where their behavior no longer rules your inner world. And that kind of freedom is worth more than any argument you could ever win. The second sign follows close behind. Their manipulation tactics stop dragging you into the emotional chaos they used to create. There was a time when one guilt trip could make you doubt your own choices. A cruel little comment could destroy your confidence for the day. A sudden burst of affection after weeks of distance could make you believe things were changing. That is how the cycle worked. Narcissists depend on predictable emotional reactions. Your fear, your hope, your confusion, your guilt. Those reactions made it easier for them to guide your behavior. But now the pattern becomes visible. And once you see the pattern, it becomes harder to be controlled by it. Watch this carefully, because this shift changes everything. Now, a dramatic crisis does not always feel like your emergency to fix. A silent treatment no longer sends you into panic mode, trying to restore peace at any cost. Instead of instantly defending yourself against false blame, you pause. And that pause matters. It gives you enough space to ask a new question. Is this even a real conversation, or is this just another setup designed to pull me in? That one pause can save you from hours, days, even years of emotional damage. You also begin to stop carrying feelings that were never yours to carry. When they call you selfish for setting a boundary, you do not automatically absorb the blame. When they act miserable and hint that you caused it, you no longer rush to fix what was never yours to repair. You start understanding a truth that changes the whole game. Healthy adults are responsible for their own emotions. They do not control others through fear, guilt, or obligation. This does not make you cold. It does not make you cruel. It means you are finally learning the difference between compassion and compliance. You can care about someone without surrendering your needs. You can understand their feelings without handing over your peace. And once their manipulation stops producing guilt, fear, or confusion in you, one of their strongest tools begins to fail. Then comes the third sign, and this one is deep. You stop over-explaining yourself in the hope of finally being understood. In narcissistic relationships, people are often trained to believe they must justify every feeling, every choice, every boundary. You become used to defending yourself constantly. You explain your tone, your memory, your reasons, your needs. You choose your words carefully, hoping if you say it just right this time, they will understand. But they never really wanted understanding. The point was to keep you engaged, doubting yourself, and chasing approval that was always moving out of reach. With time, you begin to see how exhausting that pattern really is. You realize that a person committed to misunderstanding you will always find a way to twist your words, no matter how calm you are, no matter how fair you are, no matter how much proof you bring. That awareness changes your behavior. You begin to answer simply, directly, clearly. You stop writing long messages to explain your intentions. You stop building emotional court cases to prove your memory is valid. You become more comfortable saying no without adding a page of reasons after it. And that is not weakness, that is recovery. Because healthy boundaries do not need permission to exist. You are not being disrespectful when you stop arguing your humanity to someone who benefits from denying it. You are just refusing to enter a fight that was never built for truth. This does not mean you no longer value communication. It means you now know the difference between healthy dialogue and endless debate designed to wear you down. You save your voice for people who listen with respect, not people who treat every conversation like a battlefield. And when you stop searching for validation from someone who is never going to give it honestly, a huge amount of emotional energy comes back to you. That energy starts building something stronger inside you, confidence, quiet, steady confidence. Not the kind that needs applause, not the kind that collapses when someone disapproves, the kind that comes from living in line with your own values, the kind that grows when you trust your own experience again. If any of this feels familiar, stay here, because the next shift is where many people realize they are becoming themselves again, maybe for the first time in a long time. And once that starts, the entire story changes. The fourth sign is that your identity becomes stronger than the false version of you they tried so hard to create. This is one of the biggest changes of all. Narcissists often reshape the people around them through constant criticism, subtle comparisons, dismissive comments, and repeated messages about who they think you are supposed to be. Over time, you may have started questioning your intelligence, your kindness, your ability, even your value as a person. And that uncertainty helped them. The less certain you felt about yourself, the easier it was for them to define reality for you. But healing begins when you stop seeing yourself through their distorted lens. You begin to remember things you left behind, interests you dropped, friendships you neglected, dreams you pushed aside because they mocked them, minimized them, or made you feel foolish for wanting more. Then the question changes. You stop asking, "What will they think?" And you start asking, "What do I actually want?" That question is powerful. It marks the return of your real self. You also begin trusting your own judgment again. Decisions that once needed endless reassurance start coming from a steadier place inside you. Mistakes no longer prove that you are broken or inadequate. They become part of being human, part of learning. Compliments begin to feel believable because they match the healthier image you are rebuilding. And insults from the narcissist begin to lose force because they no longer line up with what you know to be true. Maybe the most beautiful part is this: you stop shrinking to keep someone else comfortable. You speak more honestly. You laugh more freely. You let yourself shine without feeling guilty for taking up space. The version of you that once existed only to avoid conflict starts fading away, replaced by someone who knows their values, respects their needs, and refuses to be defined by another person's distortion. If you are hearing your own story in these words, keep going, because the next sign is not loud either, but it reveals just how much power they have already lost over you. The fifth sign is that their attempts to get a reaction from you stop working. And this matters more than many people realize. Narcissists feed on reactions. Emotional reactions reassure them that they still matter in your mind, that they can still move your mood, disturb your peace, shape your choices. They may use criticism, sarcasm, jealousy, false accusations, passive-aggressive comments, or even sudden kindness. Different masks, same goal, to pull you back into a cycle where your emotions orbit around them. In the past, one message could ruin your whole day. One cruel remark could trigger hours of self-doubt. One strange post online could send your mind racing, wondering if it was about you. You felt the need to answer, defend, correct, prove, explain. But now you begin to see the bait without feeling required to bite. You notice the setup, but you do not rush into it. You understand that not every accusation deserves a response. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every piece of drama deserves front row space in your life. This does not happen because you have stopped feeling. It happens because you have learned something hard and important. Impulsive reactions often feed the very cycle you are trying to escape. So instead of firing back right away, you wait, you breathe, you think. You ask yourself whether engaging will actually help or whether it will only reopen the same old wound. Very often the healthiest answer is silence. No performance, no defense, no emotional donation. And when this happens, they may push harder. They may switch tactics. Charm one day, hostility the next. A fake emergency, a random compliment, a sharp insult, a strange test. But your calm holds because your peace is no longer built on their behavior. And when they can no longer shake your emotional balance on command, their influence begins to collapse in a way they cannot easily fix. The sixth sign is that you rebuild healthy boundaries and stop feeling the need to defend them over and over. Narcissistic relationships often train people to believe that every boundary needs approval. If you said no, you were called selfish. If you asked for respect, you were told you were too sensitive. If you needed space, they acted abandoned, offended, or angry. Little by little, you were taught to question whether your needs were even reasonable. That confusion runs deep, but recovery changes the way you see boundaries completely. You begin to understand that boundaries are not punishments. They are not revenge. They are not cruelty. They are simple lines that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They are acts of self-respect. And when that truth finally lands, everything starts to shift. You no longer feel like a bad person for saying no. You understand that declining a request does not make you unkind. You become more comfortable limiting contact, ending conversations that turn abusive, stepping away from arguments that have no real destination. You also stop believing a boundary is only valid if the other person agrees with it. This is huge, because a narcissist may complain, mock your limits, call you dramatic, or insist you have changed. And maybe you have changed. Maybe you had to. Maybe change is exactly what saved you. Instead of arguing to win approval for your standards, you begin to accept something much stronger. Their disagreement does not cancel your right to protect yourself. Their reaction belongs to them. Your job is not to make every boundary feel good to the person who benefits from violating it. Your job is to stay consistent. And the deeper change is this. Your boundaries stop being desperate attempts to control their behavior and become natural expressions of your own dignity. You no longer measure success by whether they like your limits. You measure success by whether those limits protect your peace, your sanity, and your ability to build relationships rooted in respect instead of fear, guilt, and control. And once that becomes natural, the next truth becomes impossible to ignore. The seventh sign is that your life starts moving forward while they stay trapped in the same old patterns. This is where many people finally see what real victory looks like. A lot of survivors think winning means watching the narcissist fail, get exposed, lose status, or finally face consequences. But real healing has very little to do with what becomes of them. The clearest sign of recovery is that they are no longer the center of your story. Your energy stops circling around their behavior and begins flowing toward your own life, your own values, your own purpose, your own future. You begin investing in relationships that feel calm instead of unpredictable, safe instead of confusing, mutual instead of one-sided. You start saying yes to opportunities that once felt impossible because your confidence is no longer being chipped away every day. You rediscover hobbies, dreams, and ambitions that got buried while you were busy surviving. And that is the word many people miss: surviving. Because when you were in it, so much of your energy went into managing moods, avoiding explosions, reading signals, protecting yourself, recovering from conversations that should never have cost that much. But now the question changes. You stop waking up asking, how do I avoid conflict today? And you begin asking, what brings me peace? What gives me purpose? What kind of life do I want to build? Meanwhile, many narcissists keep repeating the same cycle in different places with different faces. New relationship, same pattern, new friend, same drama, new setting, same blame. Genuine self-reflection is hard for people who are always busy protecting a fragile, false self. So while your world expands through learning, growth, honesty, and healing, theirs often stays trapped in denial. And one of the strongest parts of recovery is this: you stop comparing your path to theirs. You no longer need updates. You no longer need proof that they are struggling. You no longer need to know whether they are happy, pretending, or falling apart. Your eyes are back on your own road. And that is where freedom gets real. The eighth sign, and maybe the most important one of all, is that you finally understand true victory is inner freedom, not making the narcissist suffer. This is the lesson many people resist at first. Because after manipulation, betrayal, and emotional abuse, it is normal to imagine a day when they regret everything. A day when they feel what you felt. A day when they lose what they took for granted. A day when justice looks visible. That fantasy makes sense. Pain wants balance, but when your peace stays tied to their future, your emotional life is still connected to them. That is the trap. Real freedom begins when your happiness no longer depends on what they do next. You stop waiting for closure that may never come. You accept that some people are unwilling and maybe unable to fully face the harm they caused. And you refuse to let that truth delay your healing any longer. Instead of watching them, you start noticing yourself, your calm, your steadiness, your self-respect, your ability to make decisions without panic, your ability to trust your own instincts again. Those are not small things. Those are major victories. They exist whether or not the narcissist ever changes, whether or not they ever apologize, whether or not anyone else ever sees what happened. And if you have recognized even a few of these shifts in yourself, pause for a moment and really let that sink in. Healing from narcissistic abuse rarely comes all at once. It is built in small, consistent changes. A stronger boundary here, a calmer reaction there, a little more sleep, a little less fear, a little more trust in your own mind. A little less need to explain. These changes may feel quiet, but they are life-changing. They are proof that you are no longer living under someone else's emotional rule. So, if this message is landing with you, stay with it, because the final truth is the one that turns survival into something much bigger. Defeating a narcissist is not about winning arguments. It is not about exposing them to the world. It is not about forcing them to understand your pain or waiting until everyone finally sees what you saw. The deepest victory is reclaiming your own life. It is waking up without dread sitting in your chest. It is making choices without drowning in guilt. It is trusting your gut again after years of being taught not to. It is building relationships based on honesty, safety, and mutual respect instead of manipulation, confusion, and control. It is looking in the mirror and recognizing yourself again, not the version shaped by fear, not the version trained to shrink, explain, and overfunction, the real you, the one that was always there beneath the noise. And if you have been noticing these signs, even quietly, then give yourself credit, seriously. Because progress and healing often feels ordinary while it is happening. You may not see how far you have come because you are living it one day at a time. But the fact that their silence does not terrify you the way it once did, the fact that their words no longer define you, the fact that your future feels bigger than your history with them, that all means something. It means the hold is breaking. It means the story is changing. It means your life is becoming your own again. And that is not just survival, that is transformation. If this connected with you, pass it on to someone who may still be stuck questioning their reality. Sometimes one clear insight can open a locked door inside a person's mind. And if you are walking this healing path yourself, take a moment and ask which sign spoke to you the most. Because naming your progress is sometimes the moment your strength becomes visible. Recovery is possible. Peace is real. Life after narcissistic abuse is not just about making it through. It is about becoming steadier, wiser, stronger, and finally free.